Hello, you are welcome to the second free masterclass for research organized by Joseph Budu, the research coach. Today we are going to discuss.
Thank you, sir.
Today we are going to have an introduction to research. You want to know what research is about and the types of research and how to go about research. So this will be our outline for this masterclass. We look at what is research, types of research, why do research, doing research, and then a few research or writing tools that we can use in our own research. By the end of this masterclass, you should be able to identify relevant research challenges. There are so many issues around us, but which ones are relevant that you can apply the scientific method to study as a researcher. You should also be able to apply knowledge in behavioral science or design science to solve research problems. So we'll take the first one. What is research? So when you say research, we are talking about an activity to find explanations or meanings of something. We want to understand and have meaning, the meaning about something that is happening in our world. So there are so many things happening around us. Right now, we are experiencing a pandemic. The pandemic is something that is happening. If we want to understand it, we have to do research. Yesterday, I received an email for a scholarship opportunity to study how people are managing their work environments and the changes organizations are making in their work environment because of COVID-19. This is new research that has come up. Okay. Somebody also wants to study the consumer patterns in this COVID-19 era. This is a new study. We want to understand the meanings that people associate with things that happen around us. This is research. And you can get this meaning from real world data, or what you call empirical data. The meanings that we construct from the things happening around us should be systematic. It has to be systematic because somebody should be able to follow the steps and procedures you took to produce or arrive at similar results or close to the same results that you obtained. So it has to be systematic. And it is one of the characteristics of scientific research. Then when you are doing research should also have appropriate techniques. There are several techniques that we use to do research. And these techniques can either produce knowledge about something or an artifact about something, or an artifact that solves a real problem. Okay, so for instance, in this era that we are facing COVID-19 or coronavirus, we can see that we didn't have certain types of masks. Some people have done a face mask that covers the face. You wear it like a hat, a band on your head, and it has a transparent plastic covering that covers your face. There was something like that for welders, but we didn't. Maybe it was there for help, but it wasn't that prevalent in our society this way. Then people introduced 3D printing and and they have started using it to produce face masks for coronavirus. So this is a new artifact that is solving a real world problem around us. So when you do research, it either generates new knowledge, like Newton explained why the apple fell. Why didn't the apple stay in the sky, but it fell when it got pulled from the tree? Why did it fall? Why didn't it stay up? That explanation of the force of gravity has led to so many things, but it was just knowledge that he brought about. But that knowledge can lead to artifacts. Okay. So research leads to understanding or an artifact. If you are doing something that doesn't lead to either an understanding or an artifact, we can't say it is research. You'll be hearing, maybe you have an assignment to do, and you say that you are researching, you are doing research, It means that you are reading articles and reading different sources to help you do the assignment. It may be producing an understanding, but it's not systematic. You are searching at random and in an ad hoc manner. It is not research. So I've been mentioning that you do research about something. We prefer to call that something a phenomenon. So if there's anything happening in the human space or anything that you want to understand, we call it a research phenomenon. So it's a set of behaviors of some entities. It can be a human being, an organism, an organization that is found interesting by a research community. And there are different research communities. We have those who are interested in economics research. People are interested in biology research. People are interested in epidemiology. I am interested in information systems, for instance. So there are different communities that have different interests that they're researching. Okay. So based on what they are interested in, it forms a phenomenon. Okay. So the next thing we want to look at is an understanding. What is an understanding? It is knowledge that allows prediction of a behavior around a phenomenon. So if you remember, during the first 3 weeks of lockdown, the scientific reasoning behind the lockdown is to flatten the curve, in quotes, flatten the curve. They have seen from previous pandemics that the rate of infection starts small, let's put it that way, with few people. But then if the people are left to roam, the rate of infection now becomes exponential. So if you draw it on a graph, you see that it looks like a hill or a mountain. And that can cause or bring many deaths. So instead of allowing people to be roaming and to have an exponential curve, let's let everybody stay at home so that the rate of infection will reduce, and then we'll have a flat curve, and the number of deaths will also reduce. So that was the science behind the lockdown. And this was studied from previous pandemics. Because of that understanding from previous pandemics, we were able to predict what could happen in 2020 if they don't take that precaution. So that's what happened. Now, let's move on to types of research. There are different types of research. But me, I'm a social science researcher, so I'll be a little biased to social science research. If what you want to do is not covered here, we can speak about it during the Q&A course, Q&A session, so that we can address it. So there are two main types of research that we'll talk about here today. We have the natural science research. Natural science research is research about anything in our real world that produces an understanding. So we want to understand why something happens, or how something happens, or when something happens, which factors affect something happening. This is natural science research. And we can have two forms. Social science, which wants to understand the social system or the society, things happening within the society, or people's behavior and how people behave. So we have social science, behavioral science. You can also have the physical sciences, those who study physics, biological sciences, psychological sciences, All these things come from the disciplines or the communities of study that people form around various subjects. But so far as they are aiming at understanding a reality, we call it natural science research. If the focus of the research is to produce something, maybe to produce a robot, to produce a certain artifact, anything that will be a real object or something we can use, even a language is an artifact. Signs and symbols are artifacts. Any research that is towards producing something that will solve a real world problem, we call it design science research. For us in information systems, we can produce artifacts like software or hardware, maybe a computer system or a robot or a mobile app. All these are artifacts that we can produce in information systems. Those in medical sciences can produce something like a test kit. You see, like the malaria test kit, like the coronavirus test kits, they are artifacts. If you take a systematic approach to produce it, you can call it design science research. But if right now, after the coronavirus test kit has been produced, you want to find out how people are using it, what challenges they are facing in using it, then you are doing natural science research. Okay, so know this distinction. So if you look at this table, natural science research is also known as basic research. And it is descriptive or explanatory in nature. They want to describe something that is happening or explain something that is happening. And in the focus is on understanding reality. So when they're understanding reality, they normally use theories, laws, knowledge, previous knowledge, and then other principles to understand what is happening. As I illustrated with the coronavirus curve based on the previous pandemics that have occurred. And the main purpose is to discover or propose new scientific claims. Okay, so maybe you've heard that when there's a virus infection, after about 3 or 6 months, the rate of infection becomes exponential. That is a theory that has been, or a claim that has been produced based on previous pandemics. But we see in Ghana, for instance, that the virus didn't spread, or we didn't have the effect of the virus as some people predicted. Let's talk scientifically. Okay. So scientifically, we can start looking for the factors that created the situation we are facing, that we didn't have as many deaths people lying on the streets like people predicted. Why did it happen? How come? And some people are advancing some claims because of our temperature, because of this, because of that, because of that. You understand? So these are new claims. If we arrive at these claims scientifically, we can call it an understanding or a new scientific claim. We can call that endeavor research. When we make these claims, we have to justify them. So we collect data to find out. Somebody says that it's because of the weather in Ghana. That's why we don't have many deaths like that. The weather is hot, so it's able to kill the viruses on surfaces. Well, so we have to collect data, put the virus on certain surfaces, these surfaces we are talking about, and see how long the virus takes to die. Then you have real-world evidence or empirical evidence to support or justify the claims you are making in your research. The other type of research is design science. It's also called applied research. It is prescriptive and creative in intent. Prescriptive means that if there's a problem and somebody creates a solution, he's prescribing that solution to you, that use it. Use this to solve it, to solve the problem you have. It doesn't mean it will solve it, but at that moment, that's what you have. So you use it. If it works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, you look for a new solution to that problem. So that's the prescription. And the creative part is that you are developing a new artifact to solve the problem. So the main focus is on creating things. Things like construct. A construct is a variable, like value, like any word that measures something. It's a construct. Then models, when you put various constructs together with relationships, you have a model. A method is a way of doing something. In information systems, we have a systems development methodology. If you want to develop software, what are the steps you have to follow to develop it? That's a method. Then an implementation is a real physical artifact, like a software or a hardware. So we create things in design science. So the purpose is to build, construct the artifacts, and after that, evaluate. After building the artifact, you put it out in the real world for people to use or test and give you feedback whether the solution you have proposed is working or not. So why do we do research, or why should we do research? There are different reasons. For those in school, research in your final year, oftentimes you do your research project in your final year. The school expects you to demonstrate an understanding of all the subjects you have learned from level 100 or from day one. So if you are doing Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, from day one, you learn some algebra, you learn some calculus, you learn some digital electronics, up to the final year, software engineering and so on. When you develop an artifact, a software, a mobile app, you'll be using various ideas from all these courses to build that artifact or to do your research. Okay, so we do research, especially as students, to demonstrate that we understand all the courses or the basic concepts around our discipline. Then we also do research to show our analytical skills in solving real-world problems. What is the cause of the problem? How are they related to each other? What are the consequences and what are the potential solutions? How you break down the problem to solve it is also part of research. It also shows your ability to apply a theory. A theory is an existing understanding or explanation of a phenomenon. So how are you able to use previous explanations to arrive at new explanations of the phenomenon you are studying? So when you do research, you can explain that. And then obviously it's part of academic requirements. When you do your thesis, you write on the first page or the second page that so and so you are doing this research, this is the title, and this is your index number. Then you add impartial fulfillment of the requirements for the award of maybe Bachelor of Science, Computer Science, Bachelor of Science, Computer Engineering, or Psychology. Okay. So it's a partial requirement. For people in academia, like lecturers are also supposed to do research. If you don't do research and publish the research, you cannot be promoted. So me, for instance, in GIMPA, when I joined GIMPA, I was given a 3-year contract. At the end of the 3 years, if I haven't published, I'll be given a warning that by the next 3 years, I should have published enough to be promotable to senior lecturer. If I'm not promotable, I will lose my contract. So my contract will not be renewed. If you're a senior lecturer, you have to publish enough to become an associate professor. Otherwise, at the end of your contract, you are no more. It will not be renewed. It's only associate professors and full professors who have tenure. Okay, so they are also supposed to be doing research anyway, but they will not be sacked. They are full-time in the university. So these are the reasons why we do research. And some do research for different things, for themselves, for their businesses, to understand their customers. There are different real world reasons. So how do we go about doing research. The first thing, some people have written to me, they have a topic they want to how should they craft their topic and so on. I don't like starting research from topic per se, but for the purpose of the general audience, let's start with crafting a topic. So if you want to have a topic in mind, the first thing is to ask yourself, what is your dependence variable? The dependent variable is the phenomenon that changes or that is affected in the environment you are studying. So for instance, learning is a dependent variable, or learning can be a dependent variable. Something can affect learning. Classroom, IQ, lighting in the classroom can affect learning. Okay, so learning is your dependent variable. It depends on something. So ask yourself, what dependent variable do you have in your topic? We have to see your dependent variable. The next thing is to look at, so if you want to identify a dependent variable, look around you, things that human beings experience or do. Recently, we have what we call the Sustainable Development Goals. People want to reduce poverty, want to reduce climate change, want to reduce that, want to have equal opportunities. These are human challenges. So you can identify something from that human beings face as your dependent variable. Then you look in your discipline and ask yourself, what in your discipline can affect your dependent variable? Me, I'm in information system, so I have to look for a technology that can affect the dependent variable. For instance, how does mobile banking help reduce poverty? Mobile banking is my independent variable and poverty is my dependent variable. So always look out for these two variables in your topic. When you have that, ask yourself these questions. Is it relevant? I want to do how mobile banking affects poverty or reduces poverty. It has a dependent variable and an independent variable, but it's not relevant. It's not a big deal. I don't think poor people will even think about going to do mobile banking or use mobile banking. Do they even, excuse me to say, can they even afford to buy a smartphone to do mobile banking? Are they even having bank accounts? You see, the link is it looks far-fetched. But maybe I've observed something that when banks roll out mobile banking for their customers are able to use the mobile banking apps to send remittances to their people in the, let's say, villages or deprived areas. When they receive these remittances, they use it to turn their life around, start small micro businesses, and to get out of poverty. Maybe you've seen a link like that. All of a sudden it becomes interesting, and then you can study. So ask yourself, is it relevant? Is it relevant to the environment you are in? Is it academically and intellectually interesting to you and other people in your field? You can see if a topic is interesting, if people are publishing on it in your field. When you look at the journals, are people writing about it currently? Is there a 2020 article about it? 2019, 2018 article about the topic? Then it shows that it suggests that the issue is in vogue, is interesting. Does it present a challenge and sustain your motivation throughout the duration of your project? Don't choose a topic you don't like. Don't let anybody force a topic on you. Okay, because you need to have an interest in the topic throughout the research life cycle from the beginning to the end. If it's not interesting to you, you will lose interest and you may not do a good work. Ask yourself, is it feasible? Imagine that I want to study how presidents use mobile banking. How presidents use mobile banking. The topic is fantastic, it's interesting, but do I have access to any president in the world to go and interview to find out, Your Excellency, I want to do research about how presidents use mobile banking. Can you talk to me how you use mobile banking? I don't know any president in the world. You see, so your project is not feasible from start. Okay. So the feasibility here borders on most often getting access to data. As soon as a topic comes to mind, ask yourself, this one is a practical matter, practical issue. Ask yourself, will you get data? If you don't get data, please look for another topic. I've experienced this before and it wasn't pleasant. Are you able to operationalize it? For instance, if you want to develop an artifact to solve the problem, you yourself, are you able to do it? Or are there people around who can help you with the machinery and necessary materials to develop the artifact? Now, when you're doing research, there are three approaches, honestly, but we'll talk about two here. The first one is inductive approach or induction. Induction is where you don't start with any theory. Oftentimes, when you are doing your research, you are required to add some theory to your work. But if you are not finding any appropriate theory, you are having challenges with identifying a theory, you can do induction. Induction is where you argue your point out that there's a problem you have identified, but after this problem, you don't think that there is a theory that explains the problem very well. So you are going to collect real-world data. Out of the real-world data, you come out with your own or a new theory. Okay, so that's induction. The opposite is deduction. In deduction, you take an initial theory or you even formulate hypothesis. On the hypothesis, you draw certain conclusions that based on ABC, this thing can happen. Okay, so that's your hypothesis. You look at previous literature and you draw a hypothesis. From the hypothesis, you collect data to find out what is happening, whether what is happening in the data corresponds with your hypothesis. If it is true, then your hypothesis has been accepted or confirmed. If the data is saying something else, then you discard the hypothesis. For instance, last week, I was helping somebody study the factors that affect mobile banking adoption. It's a small part of a larger study. And then we hypothesized that entertainment can make people use mobile banking. There were other factors. When we did the analysis, we saw that entertainment doesn't have any place. People don't use mobile banking applications because of entertainment. They use it because it is easy to use, it is useful, it gives them convenience. These were the factors that they said. So the hypothesis that entertainment makes people use mobile banking applications was discarded. Okay. So this is deduction. So this is a summary or a comparison of the two sample articles, how they use induction and deduction. But what matters most, or the core of research, is having a research problem. In the first master class, I introduced the concept of problematization, where you read previous literature and show the weaknesses in the assumptions of the literature. And out of that, you craft a problem from the literature to support your problem, your research, sorry. So that inconsistency and that issue in previous research that you see is a problem is what you call your research problem. And when you're writing your research problem, explain why it is a big deal to research into the problem you have identified. If you don't explain it, nobody would believe or become interested in it. So for instance, you want to research into coronavirus, you want to research into a vaccine for coronavirus. If we don't research into that vaccine, people will die. So it becomes compelling that we have to do this research. Okay, I'm using the coronavirus because it is around us. But whatever problem you identify, ask yourself, what is the big deal? If you don't do it, what can happen? So this is your motivation to do that research, okay, and explain why it is relevant to do that research. And this problem should lead to a research question. So if after stating the problem, you come out with a question. If we relate to the research, the coronavirus example, you can ask, what is the best vaccine to solve coronavirus? Or how can we prevent coronavirus infection? This would be a research question. And when you have a research question, you can easily craft a topic from it. That's why I normally don't like starting research with a topic. If you have a good problem, you can have a topic. From your problem statement, you have a purpose. A purpose is a broad aim, a broad statement about what you want to achieve in your research. So for instance, the purpose of this study is to identify or produce a vaccine to solve coronavirus. If you are writing a dissertation, you also have to break down the purpose into objectives. For instance, what vaccine can be produced to reduce coronavirus infection by 50%? What environmental factors are necessary to reduce coronavirus by 50%? And what are the human interventions we can use to reduce coronavirus by 50%? These are small objectives which are tied into the research purpose. The research purpose is big. How can we prevent coronavirus by 50%? That's the big aim. Then you break it down into smaller statements or objectives. Then you turn the statements into questions. When you turn the statements into questions, you have research questions. Okay, then the research questions will have your concept and variables and the relationships stated clearly. Then, if you are writing your dissertation, this will be in your chapter 1. So if it was a paper, it will be your introduction. You have to show what is the big deal about your work, as I mentioned earlier, in your motivation. You take a cue from the research problem. That when you finish your study, how will it affect research? Maybe you will have a better understanding of the phenomenon. So future studies will be able to chart a new path. Or you identify the problem in literature. People have been explaining something in a certain way, but your study has come to show that way we have been explaining it is not the best. So you have showed a better way of explaining that phenomenon. So that would be your significance. Then how will your study also affect policy? Policy in terms of maybe government decisions or regulations. Okay. For instance, in my PhD research, I found that I'm studying how digital platforms create value for musicians and other people in the music industry. We found that there are some platforms that are not regulated, or they take people's music and just put it online for people to download and enjoy for free. So I did a typology to categorize all the various types of platforms in Ghana. So I said that under my significance, I showed that my study is significant for policy because it can help the Ministry of Creative Arts, for instance, know the types of platforms in the ecosystem, to see those ones that are giving benefits to stakeholders and those ones which are not, and to take decisions on the ones which are not. Maybe if they want to take taxes or so, they can have a good understanding of the ecosystem. Okay, so this is a policy significance. Practice is also about how we do things. So in future, if somebody wants to develop a new digital platform, what are the things the person has to include in order to create value for the people who join? Okay. So based on the things we have learned, I did this outline to guide you. If you are writing a dissertation, your project work, final year project work, all the things I have said will be in chapter 1. So you have chapter 1, it's called Introduction. 1.1 will be research background. You talk about the phenomenon in the world. You give some statistics to show how the problem is working, or how it is prevalent in the world. Then you talk about the research problem, the problem you did earlier. What are the areas in literature that people have ignored, or what are the problems in literature that haven't been solved? From that, you bring your research purpose, you break it down to get your research objectives, you turn it into research questions. The research hypothesis is for those who want to do a survey, for instance. We'll talk about surveys later on. But before you bring your hypothesis here, you have to do a chapter 2 or even a chapter 3 so that you can get your hypothesis and you can copy them and come and paste them over here. Then you bring your research significance. What's the big deal about your work? And then your chapter outline. How many chapters does your work have? And what will each chapter contain? You then get it. Bear in mind that all these sections are iterative. You don't write one, finish, and say that you won't touch it again. As you are going on, you may see something else that you can bring to improve upon the section. For instance, if you take research significance, you may have a better research significance after you have collected and analyzed your data. Your findings will come out and you come and beef up the significance you wrote here when you are writing the chapter 1. If you are writing a research paper, normally it's shorter, maybe 10 pages, 20 pages. So you put all these parts into an introduction section. Normally, this is about 500 words, 600 words into one section. You don't break it down 1.1, 1.2. No. Some papers do it, but it's not widely accepted. The widely accepted one is to have straight section numbers like this. The sections that you can break down oftentimes is the literature review and maybe methodology, and then the results and analysis. Now let's talk about some research and writing tools that you can use in your work. The first one is Mendeley. When you are writing, you have to be citing. You have to keep track of your citations. Mendeley will help you to do that, so you don't forget your citations. I know other people use other means. They copy their references into Notepad, and now when they are finished working, they come and arrange it by themselves in alphabetical order at the end of the week. If that works for you, please go ahead. I will use Mendeley too, so that I don't have to worry up my head about doing arrangements and keeping track of my references. The next one is Grammarly. Grammarly helps you to do spell checks and check your grammar, especially for us who are not native English speakers. You can use a tool like Grammarly to help you to check your grammar very well. The next tool is Turnitin. Turnitin is for checking plagiarism. Honestly, if you write very well by yourself, you may not have to use Turnitin because you know you didn't plagiarize. You wrote everything yourself. So you may not have to do a plagiarism check. But sometimes you can check to be sure of yourself that everything is okay. And when you send your work out, if you're in a university, the university may require you to do Turnitin check. You may be required to do Turnitin check before you submit, and you add the plagiarism check similarity report to your work if it is below a certain threshold before you be allowed to submit. Otherwise, you can't submit. Turnitin is available for only universities. So we'll pause here to take Q&A. If you have any question about what we have learned or anything that bothers your mind, you can ask for redress. The floor is open. You can unmute yourself and then you ask your question.
Dependent and independent ones or for me to the concept well. Thank you.
Okay. So the dependent and independent variable.
Hello.
Yes. I'm listening.
Hello.
I'm listening to you, Mr. Apia. Okay, so the dependent and independent variables are the two issues you want to study in your phenomena. You said that when you are starting research, you begin with a phenomenon. A phenomenon is something that is happening around you that you want to understand. Why are people using mobile phones? People are using mobile phones, and you want to understand why people are using it. So that's a phenomenon, okay? And so maybe you want to find out the factors affecting people's use of mobile phones. People's use of mobile phones here is dependent on those factors. Okay, so let's narrow down the factors to, let's say, financial factors. What are the financial factors affecting people's use of mobile phones? So you are proposing that people use mobile phones because of financial factors. Therefore, the use of mobile phones is your dependent variable. It depends on financial factors. The other way around is that financial factors affect the use of mobile phones. So your topic will be like the financial factors affecting the use of mobile phones. This can be your topic, or financial factors and the use of mobile phones. You are saying that financial factors is your independent variable. They can stand on their own. Financial factors can stand on their own, but they affect the use of mobile phones. So this is the dependent and independent variable. Mr. Apia, do you understand? Mr. Apia, do you understand? Okay. Any other question?